All right, so welcome everyone once again. Okay, so today we're gonna analyze a different form of essay that they will ask, on the test. You may hit with this and be surprised. It's not gonna be like the other writings essays that we have done. It's gonna be a little bit different. They're gonna provide to you information that you're gonna be able to read and analyze, and then you're gonna be able to listen to a lecture or to something same topic, you know, but it won't be information. You're gonna be give get information from the lecture and from the reading, and you're gonna write your response. What they're gonna ask. So we're gonna go through one together here. So and if you have any questions about it, we will answer them at the end. But you're gonna see what the difference will be, because they're gonna provide to you all this information, and by listening and by reading something about it. So okay, so let's see it together. All right.
Once again, we have 3 points in a lecture that challenge points in a text. So in my notes for the text, I have the three main topics: guns, planes, and the camera, and some details about what exactly the text says is evidence for this main idea that the US and Europe receive too much credit. They get extra credit for, or unwarranted credit they should not have. This X here is supposed to just mean like bad or too much or something negative. Too much credit for things that they did not do. So we have this Chinese hand cannon in early China, this Brazilian man who made the first flying machine, and this Iraqi man who made a pinhole camera 1,000 years before the invention of the camera, according to the text. And the lecture is in a different order, right? The professor talks about the guns last. In fact, he talks about the camera first. So we have here a different order, and I put them in the same order. Why did I do that? Guns, guns, planes, planes, camera, camera. Well, because I did this part of my notes before hearing the lecture. I knew that there would be some link, some discussion of the same topics, because that's how the essay always is. The same three topics appear, and you can expect to hear details about those three topics. Now, that meant that when I actually took my notes, I had to write here first, and then I wrote here, and then I wrote here, but that's okay. If you give yourself space on your notes, that doesn't cause any problem. So make sure you give yourself enough space. These are the last notes you will take, the last long notes you will take. So any paper, any extra paper you have, you can use them, make lots of room to separate these main topics. So in your actual essay, you need to include those three main points: that the hand cannon was not very useful, that the balloons were not planes and they were big and they caught fire, and that the camera mentioned here wasn't a real camera because it could not take photos. It was only on a wall, projected. So you need all three of those in your essay, preferably in 3 different paragraphs. so that you have a paragraph about how hand cannons were impractical, separate from what the text said, a paragraph about this and a paragraph about this, as you can see in my sample essay underneath this video. And also, as I said, it needs to be clearly structured, possibly in this same structure here. This is my preferred structure, but if you can write a good essay with the 2 body paragraphs, that's also okay. Next, we have the right language. You need to use that reported speech and the contrast words to show that the text is different from the lecture. And finally, the advanced English that you always need in your essays for the TOEFL. If you have all of this together, you'll score 5 out of 5 on your integrated essay.
Okay, so we haven't considered the reading nor the listening yet. We're gonna do that. I just wanted you guys to see the difference, of how the essay is formed. All right, so we're going to see the start from where the instructions are giving, and we're gonna analyze the reading and the listening here. Give me 1 second. All right, so this is the instructions. Okay, so for this task, oh, here we see the instructions, right? So for this task, you will read a passage and then listen to a lecture on the same topic. Okay, so read and listen. And you may take notes while you read and listen. Then you will write a response to a question that asks you about the relationship between the reading and the lecture, right? The question does not ask you to express your personal opinion, so we don't write about our personal opinion. You may refer to the reading passage again while you write, but will only be allowed to hear the lecture 1 time. That's where it comes a little difficult. But you may use your notes to help you answer the question. And typically an effective response would be from 150 to 225 words. Okay, so the time that it was giving, you'll be allowed 3 minutes to read the passage. After the 3 minutes, you will listen to a lecture, and then 20 minutes will be given to plan and write your essay. So this is a little different. All right, let's any questions about it, about the instructions?
No.
No, not yet. Okay, good. All right, so here's the reading part. All right, so let's read it together. Okay. Let's have let me see. Andrea, could you read the first paragraph, please?
Okay,
You able
teacher.
to see it there?
Yes, it's okay. All too often, inventors from the USA and European countries are incorrectly credited for creating the modern world. In fact, various nations around the world are truly responsible for many of the innovations that have shaped our lives today.
Thank you. All right. Valeria, can you read the next paragraph, please?
To give one example, European armies are credited with developing the modern firearm in the 19th and early 20th centuries. It is true that the European guns were handheld combustion weapons that could quickly fire a bullet, just like today's handguns. However, it is also true that 600 years earlier, Chinese armies had already been using firearms called hand cannons, which had many of the essential features of the European weapons that came later.
Thank you. All right, Pablo, your next paragraph.
Then there is the case of the airplanes. The world remembers American inventors Wilbur and Ulrich Wright for creating modern flight. With their development of steerable motorized flying machine in 1903. Yet Brazilian aviator Alberto Santos Dumont had made the world's first true steerable motorized flying machine in 1899. It is further worth noting that the Wright brothers firms Flying 1903 and 1904 latest less than 5 minutes, while Santos Dumont 1899 flight lasts nearly a half an hour.
All right,
But
thank you.
perhaps, okay.
It's okay. All right, Guillermo, you there?
Hello? Yes, I'm here.
Okay. You read the
Yeah.
last paragraph.
But perhaps the most popular modern invention that history wrongly thinks Europe is the camera, a device nearly everyone owns and uses today. Most history books name 19th century French photographer Louis Daguerre as the inventor of the camera. In fact, the true inventor of the camera was an Iraqi scientist born in early 2000,
1,000.
years, 2000 years before Daguerre. Even, I don't know how to pronounce that. All developed pinhole camera technology, the basis for modern photography in the early 11th century. This is yet another promising example for Western investors dominating our history awareness, so that they fail to notice how much the rest of the world was contributed to modern life.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So now let's listen to the passage. So any questions on the based on the reading that you guys, any new vocabulary, any words that maybe you got stuck with? You guys understood the reading, right? Maybe the names, a little difficult, but all right. So it's as long as you understand what it is about, okay. So hopefully the lecture will also help us to understand a bit more. So let's listen to it.
Now listen to part of a lecture on the topic you just read about.
It's certainly possible that the US and Europe get more credit than they should for creativity and innovation, but the examples from the reading, they just don't support that argument. The reading chooses inventions that really were new. The earlier examples cited were not all the same as the more modern versions whose inventors are so well known today. For starters, take the example of the camera. The reading says that's the biggest example, but nobody could take an actual photograph until Louis Daguerre's invention. Sure, even Al Haytham's pinhole device could project a photographic image onto a wall, and yes, Daguerre used a pinhole projector building off Al Haytham's discovery, but Daguerre used that projector in a completely new machine that let people easily take and print photos, while the earlier pinhole camera was not able to produce or print anything. So, The modern camera really is a European invention. Next, we can look at Alberto Santos Dumont, the Brazilian. Now, he did invent a flying machine that had a motor and could be steered. What the reading doesn't mention is that Santos Dumont's flying machine was a hydrogen balloon, not an airplane. This kind of flying machine turned out to not be very practical. It took up a lot of space and, blew up sometimes. Hydrogen catches fire really easily. The Wright brothers made the truly modern invention, the safe, space-efficient airplane. Finally, we'll look at firearms. The early Chinese hand cannons were innovative but impractical, just like the ancient pinhole camera and the helium balloon. Hand cannons were huge, had to be handled by two people, and they couldn't be aimed very well at all. The innovations that came about later made handheld firearms, well, usable, especially in battle. It is true that the European guns had the same essential features as the old Chinese hand cannons, but really, European firearms were a whole new weapon design, one that could be used reliably and by a single soldier, and that's really what the technology was about in the first place.
Okay. Now let's get our essay uh, ready, to write. Remember what we're going to be writing about?
We're going to have the reading part when we are.
Yes,
Okay.
it'll be here. This is written.
Do we have to
Right?
compare both the lecture and the listening?
Yes, yes. Remember the video mentioned the instructions, right? That you compare both. So let's read his how he planned his essay. Right. So he put the reading part, maybe all the details and the way it is informed, and then the listening part, he structured it the way it is, right? So he said that it was different. That it was they mentioned about planes here at the end, and then they mention planes here, and then he mentioned that it was not structured the same way. So let's read his essay. Okay, see what comparison he found. Okay, so I'll read the first paragraph, and then let's see. Valeria, we can read the second. Pablo, the third, and Guillermo, the last one. Okay. So So in this lecture, the professor discusses why each of the examples contained in the text are not actually solid proof that the US and Europe were given too much credit in global process. As the author had suggested, he discusses each of the three examples, pointing out the ways in which the inventors actually were innovative and important.
The text have mentioned that handguns were not invented in Europe, as many people might believe, but that they were instead used much earlier in China. However, the professor disagrees that the tools used in China, called hand cannons, can really be classified as modern firearms because they were too large for a single person to use and they were very poor at aiming. Later guns made handheld firearms more usable in battle.
Similarly, the professor pointed out that the predecessor to the airplane mentioned in the text, designed by Brazilian men, was not practical because it was a balloon, not a real airplane. It was very large and likely to explode or catch fire. In contrast, the professor states that the later invention of the airplane by two men in the United States was more similar to what we use today.
And finally, the professor says that the camera, supposedly the most important example, was not invented in Iraq at all. He makes clear that the early invention could not create prints but only a project on the wall. The French invention, in contrast, was the first time we were actually able to create photographs.
All right, thank you. Thank you all. So very good. So we see that he mentions in every detail that he puts that he brought it from the text. He brought it from where from the lecture, right? And different times he says that the professor and what else? He mentions every time that he's putting something from each place, he puts where he got it from, right? So this is what you also like to do. Compare each time. It's just part from the text and the listening part. So very good. So now let's do ours. Okay. So um, I'll leave the text here. Maybe I should find a way to have it more out there. Okay, I'll put it here this for 10 minutes, and the next 10 minutes I'll lower it down, you know, to this part, right? Maybe if I just go to the other part, we'll have it more. But okay, let me zoom in. All right, give me 1 second. That other text bigger. Okay. All right, so you're able to see it now. It's bigger.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. All right, so I'll leave that text there. All right, the time given is 20 minutes. Okay, you may begin now planning your essay. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Not yet.
Okay. Okay, how you guys doing up down there? How's the essay coming along?
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine. All right. So remember, time is important. You know, if you don't make it to the 20 minutes, try to practice writing faster because at the limited time we'll be giving. You know, but today, for that practice, that was we covered it well. Okay, so I'll get your essays. Okay, and analyze it as well. Very good. So that'll be all for today. Hope you guys have a good weekend and enjoy. You know, with your families. Stay safe. Uh, the virus is still out there. You know, we don't want to get sick.
Thank you, teacher.
All right.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, teacher.
Bye.
Your teacher, to you.
See you.